Yes, live streaming.
We are live streaming. All right, so we're at 9:30. So I'll open the meeting with a karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia ma kina ki uta, kia ma tara ki tai. E hiake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu. Tihe moriora. So good morning and welcome to our Finance and Performance Committee meeting. Starting at the top of the agenda with apologies, and I have no apologies recorded for the meeting today. Are there any apologies that people want to put forward? All right, declarations of interest. I've got a declaration of interest in public excluded item 9. If there are any other matters of interest that become apparent as we move through the meeting, please make them known at that time. Item 3, confirmation of previous minutes. I'm happy to move those. Do I have a seconder? Anne Galloway. All those in favour say aye, or just a thumb up. Against? That's carried. Public forum, item 4. There is no public forum this morning. Item 5, deputations by appointment. There are none. Item 6, presentation of petitions. There are none. So now moving to item 7, the financial performance report for the year ended 30th June. Now, Leah, I'd invite you to present this report. But just before you do, I think it's important with this end of year financial performance report in front of us, that we celebrate the results that are in front of us. You know, some outstanding work has been done here in difficult situations, delivering financial performance, and these end of year results obviously show that. This would have been outstanding under normal circumstances, but of course we're all very aware of the additional challenges that COVID gave us that make these reports, this report and the figures in it particularly notable. We have delivered and we've kept debt low at the same time as well. So it's important that we acknowledge the work that's been done and the results that have been achieved, and that we thank the staff that have worked towards achieving that as we move into consideration of this financial performance report, which is for the whole financial year ended 30th of June. So, Leah, I'll come to you for any comments that you want to make by way of introduction on this report.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everybody. I would like to make a couple of comments on the report, but before I do that, I'd just like to highlight that we have actually added another staff recommendation to our recommendations today, and I think it's appropriate that we talk about that first, which is relating to the environment we are currently finding ourselves in regards to COVID. So while our report will stand as it is and our recommendations for carry forwards approval are as they are, we do note that staff are currently reviewing the impact of the current and potential extended lockdown on our forecasts, and we will be bringing back cost-saving recommendations to council if required. Now, some of that may look at some of the carry forwards and OPEX that we're looking at, but ultimately our OPEX and our CAPEX projects, the rationale behind those carry forwards are to actually required to ensure that we deliver our projects both and we're also confirmed in the LTP. So while there is some that we could look at, our view is that we will do that as part of our whole cost saving recommendations if required as we look into our forecast as well. So that's in regards to COVID. We're currently in the process of doing those forecasts and the impact. It's obviously very difficult at this stage. It's early days. And obviously, depending on how long lockdown continues, will have an impact. So some of the scenarios that we are looking at now is picking up some assumptions around how long we are predicting to be in lockdown for level 3 and 4, which has a direct impact, obviously, on our rec and sport and libraries. In addition to that, there's other areas of the business that we're looking at that will be more of a deferral of revenue, like when we talk about consent revenue as well. So we are looking at that as we speak. Is there any other questions in regards to the forecast? Otherwise, I'll go back to the standard report. No?
All right, so are there any questions in relation to the forecast at this stage before Leah goes back to the rest of the report?
Yeah, just one, Andrew. That's okay.
If I can ask people to use the raise hand function, it just brings you to the top of the screen.
Oh, right.
So Yanni, first of all.
Sorry, I just want to be clear in terms of item 7. You don't want questions on that now. You're just talking about the forecast that you've just given, and then you want to start.
So this is just on the forecast at the moment, and we'll move to the rest of the report.
At what stage, as a council, are we going to have a chance to discuss the lockdown impact and the kind of Delta variant impact on us as an organisation? Obviously, the government have some new requirements that they're proposing, and obviously there is a financial impact. So I just wanted to check if there's a process for which, as a governance level, we can consider, you know, the response and the likely implications rather than just today.
Sure, I'll let Dawn answer from that point of view in regards to, in regards to the operational business of being locked down, we are currently working on that. But in regards to that question you asked about the government changes, Dawn, you've got your hand up. Do you want to cover that?
That's all right with you, Chair?
Yes, please. Yeah, Dawn, appreciate the comments.
Thank you. Quite clearly, it's early days. I've already instructed the organisation to do the relevant work, both in terms of what we're seeing currently and what we learned from last year. There is a briefing schedule for Tuesday of next week where we have put COVID onto the agenda, and we intend to follow the same format we did last time, which is briefings every week so that you are fully informed. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Dawn. Thank you. Yanni, was there something further?
No, that's good. We can discuss it on Tuesday next week. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Jimmy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Leah, it's possible based on your reply, it's possible whether next time or the finance performance committee meeting or the following performance committee meeting regarding council major project, particular regarding to the cost and the time frame, for all those major project due to global COVID-19 pandemic, because this is quite serious, because I'm particularly concerned a big number of the project, those budget, probably not sufficient, but how to mitigate those effects, and also time frame will be further delayed. This is my concern.
Could just jump in there. So you're going to get some information in the corporate reporting from Ruth later on in the meeting, which is also looking at price impacts on our major projects. I think that question, Councillor, would be better asked later on in the meeting.
So, Jimmy, maybe reserve that question for, it'll be item 12, the Capital Project Performance Report.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So we'll come back to that at that time. All right. Are there any further questions just on the forecasts at this time or on the matters that Leah's raised so far? Nothing further? All right. So, Leah, back to you for comments on the rest of the report.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So as Andrew indicated, it is actually a very good result. Obviously, we're still going through audit, but and it is in line with the forecast expectations that we have been highlighting in the last couple of the months. As indicated in our LTP discussions, the 36 million of COVID borrowing was not required due to increased dividends following the red bus sale from our CCTOs and improved operating results attributed to improved volumes and good cost management. So it is a good result. The reduction in debt was incorporated into the final LTP, which has had a positive impact for ratepayers in the new current year. The remaining 11 million, after we've used it for those two, is we were intending to use to repay our 2019-2020 COVID borrowing. You'll remember we borrowed over for a period of 5 years, the COVID borrowing, and we are actually intending to use that 11 million surplus with approval from the council today to actually early repay some of that. That will have a rates impact going forward into our future because of the servicing of that. So we think that's the best effective way. Now, again, that will also be taken into account. Obviously, this report was done before our current lockdown, so that even though we're still requesting approval for that today, that will be taken as part of all of our work that we're doing in regards to our forecasting at this stage and the impact.
Great, thanks very much indeed, Leah. So nothing further by way of presentation?
No.
I could just jump in there, Andrew, and just point out.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Just point out that the excuse me, that the position we're finding ourselves in is quite a healthy one, given the year-end as you've identified, and that the considerations that we're going to be, we've got an announcement on Friday afternoon. We've got the considerations at next Tuesday's workshop. We don't have to panic. We've got some time, and we've got financial resources that have been stored, if you like, as a result of this year end. I just want to point that out at this point so that we don't, there is concern, obviously, but we do have some contingencies in place.
Great, thanks, Miles, for those comments. So moving to questions now. Are there any questions on this report that we'd like answers from staff? No questions? Yanni.
Thank you. On page 36, under corporate 11, slower spending carry forwards of budgets relate to, and then it says the housing initiative, $2 million. I've been trying to understand since before the finalisation of the LTP, what's happening with this budget line. Can anyone tell me how much of that budget is actually being spent, how much is remaining, and how many people have helped into their own homes?
So
subject to that.
Yeah, Bruce, are you online? Yeah, if you could come forward.
So look, I've been trying to get a hold of the staff who are working on that project this morning. What I can say is there's a briefing that's penciled in for the 14th of September to talk about an initiative that is being worked on in that space and how it might be applied. That is a joint venture initiative with our existing partner Habitat for Humanity and with Otahi Community Housing Trust and potentially some other partners as well for an affordable housing product. So I think the best answer will that for Councillor Hanson will come on the 14th of September briefing.
Sorry, the problem is that I don't really want to carry forward a budget that I have no idea how much has been spent and what it's been spent on. I mean, why would we make a decision to carry forward funding for a project that we have no visibility on and that is not being spent?
Yeah, well, I've just presented really the where you're going to get that visibility. I believe that the best reason for carrying this forward is to continue to access the government's matching funds so that we can get the best value for Christchurch citizens from the joint funding. I think that the proposal that will come forward to you will be one that will be attractive to councillors.
But the first round of applications on this opened on the 1st of November 2019 and closed on the 15th of December 2019. We must have spent money from this, and there were 2 further funding rounds that were going to happen. I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong with the scheme or what's happening here. I can't understand why it's taking so long to get answers on it. And if it's actually, is it actually working as we've already set it up? Or are you talking about a new scheme that we're going to be asked to approve?
I'm commenting on looking forward. As say, I'm not involved with the project in the past, but we're working on a product going forward that you'll be briefed on the 14th of September, and I think all your answers will come there, Councillor.
Okay, well, can I just ask staff in terms of the general principle of the ability to carry things forward? Like, is there a kind of point where you say, actually, this project, no, they've had their time, hasn't worked, we're not carrying it forward. If we want to spend new money on a new project, we will come back to council.
Yeah, look, could I step in there, please? yes, that will be the case going forward. I don't know the history of carry forwards, but certainly in past roles I've had, that has been the case. Just dealing with this particular one, as Bruce has pointed out, this has probably taken some time to gestate and get the parties together. And I think on the 14th, you'll have all your answers. And as Bruce said, it looks as if it's going to be an exciting opportunity and be beneficial to the City Council.
Yeah, sorry, it's just that this project has been going on since 2000, well before 2019. I mean, it's been going on for at least 5 years. I just find it extraordinary that we don't understand where this money's being spent.
So, Yanni, it sounds to me as though we've got staff in the room that are able to provide information about how we'll be informed of a proposal going forward, which, and Miles, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is consistent with the resolution that we're passing today. You've obviously got some questions about the history going back to at least 2019. It doesn't sound as though we're going to be able to get you answers to those questions in this meeting, but they're questions that should be able to be answered offline, and you should expect an answer to those. Miles, have you got any comment on that? I mean, am I reading it correctly?
All I can say is that we highly recommend that the carry forward be approved for the reasons outlined by Bruce. Your concerns about the period taken hopefully will be addressed on the 14th of September. And my answers around future carry forward processes, we'll be looking at that as we go forward as well.
And noting that the 14th of September is only 2 weeks away. So if that's when the answers to the questions that Yanni's raising are able to be brought back to us in a meaningful way, particularly Yanni noting, your comments on the length of the history here, a couple of weeks isn't going to be a long time to wait. And I'm what we'll be getting is good answers at that time.
This was approved on the LTP in 2018. This is a bit like the passenger transport one. To not know how many people have accessed this fund, these questions have been put in since June 4th of this year. So you can say it's just 2 more weeks. We've had repeated, we've now got budget in front of us that we're being asked to carry forward without any understanding of what's actually happened to the scheme. And you know the history.
Yeah, point of order. I'm going to make a point of order because this is not an acceptable mechanism for communication. We're working under the constraints of the Zoom meeting. We've already heard from 2 members of staff in terms of the ability to get that piece of information together in time for this meeting this morning, which is why we have emphasised the need to give advance notice so that we can get that information together. There are 3 people that are key to this, and I don't know why my video stopped, but anyway.
You're Daleki, Leanne, so it might help.
We can understand you, but your sound quality is not the best.
What's the point of order?
Okay, my point of order is that staff have already made the point in relation to the information. But I would like this line of questioning to end.
Yeah, so I mean, what where we've got to, Yanni, is that you've got some historic questions. There are not staff in the room that can answer those at the moment. We know we've got a briefing coming in 2 weeks' time. We can get answers to the questions that you're asking about the history outside of this meeting. And we've already been given details around a briefing that's coming on the 14th, and we've been advised that the briefing that's coming on the 14th is consistent with the carry forward in the resolution that's in front of us. If you're not comfortable with that carry forward, then obviously there's a position you take on this resolution or that part of this resolution. But we're not going to be able to get answers to the historic questions in the meeting here and now because we do not have people in the room that can answer them.
Well, can I just put it around another way? If, and we don't know what's going to be briefed on the 14th, but if we're not happy with what's been proposed and we don't want this money to be used for a new scheme, what's the option for that money going back into either something else or into just our normal funds? Like, will we have those options as part of the briefing after we've already agreed to carry it forward? It's just a process question around if we approve the carry forward, do we have to wait till next year to make any changes to that budget?
Yeah, so Leah, if we can get an answer to that, please.
Sure. So in regards to the carry forwards, the carry forward is for a specific purpose. If that purpose is not going to be used for that purpose, then it can't be spent on that. In regards to, and the new initiative, if the council does not agree to pursue the new initiative and use that funding for that, then the funding will have to be not spent on that, and it will get incorporated into the annual plan process.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. So are there any further questions on this financial performance report? No further questions. All right. Is there any debate? Does anybody want to make any comment on this? I just wanted to reiterate the comments I made at the beginning. This is a good result in what have been very difficult circumstances. The financial year ended 30th June was anything other than a normal financial year, and to have the results that we've got in front of us been reported to us at the end of what has been, or what easily could have been, a very difficult year, I think is something that we need to acknowledge and that we need to celebrate. In particular, that we're able to apply surplus to what otherwise would have been the COVID borrowing, and that we're able to apply 11 million of that surplus to reducing that borrowing is a very different situation than we expected to be in when we put that borrowing in place at the beginning of the effects of the COVID pandemic. And as Miles has noted, obviously there's some work to do which looks at the effect of the current lockdown on our financial performance, but we're left in a stronger position as a result of the matters reported in this report, and as a result of last year's performance. We're in a stronger position to deal with what might be coming than we otherwise would have been. That's something to certainly acknowledge, and something that we should celebrate, a good result in what should have been, or what could have been, particularly difficult situations. This is all part of course, the continuous improvement that we're expecting to see as a result of efficiencies that have been put in place. So thanks to everybody involved in making this happen. Yanni, further debate.
Sorry, no, just, yeah, it's fine. I just look forward to receiving the information in 2 weeks' time, and just think we do need to, really understand how our money's being spent on new projects and carry forwards, and I understand staff have given an assurance that they will be looking at that process going forward. So I welcome that. Thank you.
All right, sorry, from a procedural point of view, we've moved into debate without a mover and a seconder for these recommendations. So I'm happy to move these. Do I have a seconder?
I'd like to be second.
So Jimmy will second. All right. So this is now moved and seconded. Is there any further debate? No further debate. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye, or raise a hand. Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. So now moving to item 8. And I'll just check that we've got the staff available for item 8. This is the LTP 2021 amendments, an update on those. So Peter Ryan, you're here and ready to speak to this one?
Yes, I am, Andrew. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome. So yeah, if you'd like to start with some remarks on this report, please. Thank you.
Sure. Just to recap the whole thing, you'll recall that as part of the LTP process, there was a very large number of amendments at the adoption phase. 21 of those were separated out for a separate response for various technical reasons. The undertaking was that we would come back with officer responses, and that's what this report is about. It should be noted that some of them are a little complex, and they do complement the upcoming annual plan process report that follows in item 10. They're two sides of the same coin. It should be noted just before we go further that the amendments were proposed but not accepted during the LTP 2021. This report back is for information only, and it should be very clear that it doesn't construe in any way that council has adopted or supported any particular amendment, merely that we're reporting back on a technical level. So on that basis, I'm moving now through to the schedule of responses. Now, some of these are quite technical, and the subject matter experts might need to be consulted if you need further detail on any particular response. They were canvassed with councillors during the pre-meeting. So at this point, I don't intend to line by line them, but rather to see if there are any questions or any further matters that you require information on.
All right, Peter, thank you very much indeed for the introduction. I would just reiterate the point that these were proposed amendments that were not debated in the long-term plan meeting, but that were referred to exactly the process that we're seeing here, so that were referred to this process. They were not dealt with as amendments in the long-term plan meeting. They were simply proposed amendments that were put forward either by one councillor or in some cases a group of councillors. And this is the process that they were referred into. So we're now picking up these proposed amendments or these issues that were raised as a part of this process. So moving to questions, and also noting Peter's comments that any questions that need to be answered by specific staff may not be questions that he can answer. Some of those obviously may need to be referred outside of this meeting if we don't have the relevant staff on the call. So if you could please raise your hand if you've got questions. I've got Anne and I've got Jimmy. Anne, I'll come to you first of all.
Kia ora. Thanks, Peter. I have actually just sent this through, so I understand if the answer's not there. But wondering when the Ōtautahi spatial plan is to be completed.
And I can't answer that directly. I'll need to go back to staff. There's literally hundreds of possible pieces of information here. I can't be on top of all of them. So I will undertake to come back to you on that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter. And if I can just ask members to refer to the number in the list, so the proposed amendment that you're referring to, as you bring these up as well, that would be helpful.
Sure.
So, Anne, that was everything from you?
Yes, thanks.
That's great. Jimmy.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Peter, thank you for your information. My question is regarding to those 21 items. Even you have allocated different the key person in the unit to follow up, but I'm concerned who is a single contact person to follow up until these specific item being closed. For instance, like encourage the Pacific Island, those people make the submission with a positive way, Even mentioned where staff will present to the multicultural committee on the 3rd of November. But how to link this one, how to follow up? I just don't know.
Okay, look, this is not intended to be the full stop at the end of the sentence. This is really coming back to you with information. A lot of these refer to the annual plan, which means that we'll need to follow up when we get to annual plan time. So what I'm trying to say is these will move forward, and there'll be updates as things progress, up to and including the annual plan components going into the annual plan for consideration. So this information doesn't stop here. If there's an undertaking to provide a report in October, we will come back to you and let you know that that's been done. And that's between my team and the Office of the CE to make sure that this continues to move forward and you're kept updated on progress. But this is the initial response that we promised to provide.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
All right. So, Jimmy, that's everything from you?
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yanni.
Thank you. I was just wanting to follow up on, I've put forward 2 proposed amendments, which is not on the substantive issue, but just on the process. So I just wanted to check with you, Peter, that we're able to do that. And that was to change the reporting deadline around the iTree and tree canopy item in number 43, and then also around the district plan provisions around metal recycling and dumping yards, to get a report to the committee where we can actually discuss the substantive issue. So I just wanted to check with staff around their response to that. Yeah.
I'll be looking for guidance from the chair in terms of process here, because I mean, staff can respond to any request. I just need to understand in terms of the proposed amendment, whether it has the support of the committee or if that's required, or what the procedure is here.
All right. So I mean,
I think the concern
relates. The question relates to the question really is, if there was a request for staff to report back on the tree tool to the October meeting, is that doable? You may or may not be able to answer that question.
Yeah. Can I just step in here? We probably don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the exec staff responsible for that, but we will come back to you with an answer about the doability of that.
Yeah, and realising that the amendment is simply requesting, obviously that will generate a staff response. The staff response could be that the report comes to the October meeting, or the staff response could be that it's not possible to do that by October, but there is a different timeline which is able to be achieved.
Correct.
That's fine. I mean, that's in line with the amendment that, assuming this is moved, seconded, and it passes,
Yes.
it's capable of being responded to. And from the meeting chair's point of view, that's what I need to know. So that's fine. Thanks, Miles.
Yeah.
Right. So just in regards to the iTree, so the staff advice during the LTB deliberations was there didn't need to be an amendment because there was money under existing budgets that could cover the cost of it. So I'm still a little bit confused about why now we're being told we need a report. I mean, I just want it to happen. It needs to happen. And so staff have said it will happen. So why do we need a report on something that staff said could be funded through existing budgets?
I don't know the answer, Yanni. They would have to come back from the subject matter experts out in that area.
I guess I'm concerned that this is, again, I mean, this is about the third different advice that I've had on this issue. And it was put well ahead of the LTP deliberations. And, it just seems like we're creating very complicated processes to get things done. So I guess I just don't want to see this as another delay. I want to see this as an outcome that can be delivered.
Yeah, all right. No, that's fine. I mean, certainly respecting Peter's answer that we're not going to be able to get the detail that you're looking for in this meeting.
Okay.
You've obviously got this amendment that you're wanting to put forward. There's further information that can be supplied outside of the meeting, and the report obviously will fulfil what you're looking for as well. Yeah. So,
okay.
I think we just need to appreciate, a little bit like the previous matter, we don't have the staff in the room that can give the detailed answer that you're looking for at this particular time.
Fair enough. So the other thing is just, and the other one I think is pretty self-explanatory, which is getting a report instead of a memo so that we can actually discuss the substance. And I totally appreciate that it may not be something that all my colleagues agree to, or the majority, but at least we can actually have a discussion about a way forward. Just in a general level, I think, there's a number of concerns around why some amendments were accepted and some weren't. And rather than get into all the individuals, I guess what I just want to understand from you, Peter, especially given the advice around the multi-use arena, is is there an independent review process we can go through to ensure that we're consistent with how we deal with amendments that are put forward? It's just really hard for me to respond to the community who are feeling pretty upset that some things weren't even able to be considered despite making submissions in line with the decision we've made around the multi-use arena. And I'm just wondering whether we can get an independent assessment of why some of these weren't accepted and what the best process is next year for the annual plan to ensure that we can respond to public submissions.
Okay, look, it's a broad question, but two main answers. One is that some of the proposed amendments weren't actually amendments. They were simply a request for a report, which is not an LTP piece of content. The second reason, and I think there were a couple, but the other main reason was that we sought legal advice on whether they were actually legitimate under the 2021 LTP process, or that they needed to be deferred to the annual plan for consideration there. So they were the two main reasons. And the independent advice we received was from legal services, and I respect and trust their judgment in that area. I'm not a lawyer, but they are, and that was the advice we received. So I don't know that I can provide any other avenue for independent advice there. This is maybe something that others would like to comment on, but I can't really see that there is any other avenue there.
Was there independent advice on each specific amendment?
Yes, it was.
All right. And have we been circulated that advice? Or can we get it circulated, recirculated?
I would have to go back and
Yanni, we definitely received the advice. We got a memo on it all because my one's included.
Cool. Thanks.
But just to provide some assurance, Yanni, it was on a line-by-line, case-by-case basis. It wasn't sweeping. The reason that this schedule, we call them the blue amendments, was that they were separated out on a case-by-case basis on the basis of legal advice.
All right, thank you. So, Yanni, anything further?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions that people have on this report?
Yeah, Andrew, I do. I've got my hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, I'm just finding it difficult to see everybody on this screen. That's all right. Mike, go ahead.
That's fine. And it's actually to the amendments, because obviously it's a little bit of a difficult forum to do last minute amendments with. But in regards to the second one, in terms of the district plan change, my recollection is this was raised by the councillor at a previous committee meeting, and there may have been action taken from that. And I'm not too sure if any staff are online to be able to speak to that. But I'm concerned if we can always call for reports, because there's a bigger cost associated to a report than a memo, especially if we do have some work underway looking at the issue that he has raised. So I'd hate to go approving something when we're already doing work in the background.
Yeah, and thanks for those comments. I mean, is there any comment from staff that are in the room on that exact matter? Are we aware of work streams which are already going on, which are essentially duplicated or mean that these amendments are not required because there's something that's happening anyway? Miles, I don't know whether this is something that you're able to comment on.
I'm sorry, no, I can't confirm whether there are other work streams. Look, if the amendments go through, excuse me, if the amendments go through, we'll follow up and either action them or come back with the ability to do or otherwise. This is about as far as we can go at this point.
Yeah, that's fine. So, I mean, requesting the advice could be that there's already work going on in these areas, or that these amendments, if passed, the work that they generate then becomes joined up with other work that's already happening, if any, or that the advice actually duplicates advice that's already been provided in a memo, but it comes back more formally as a result of these resolutions.
Correct.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. Now, are there any other questions that people have on this report? Nothing. All right. So we've got the committee, we've got the recommendation that's in the paper in front of us. Can I get someone, please, to move that recommendation?
Andrew, it's Sam. I'm happy to move it.
Yep. So moved by Sam, and if I can get a seconder, please.
Happy to.
Was that Sarah?
Yeah.
Yep. So moved Sam, seconded Sarah. So that puts the recommendation on the table. And then, Yanni, you're wanting to move both of these amendments?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. We'll deal with them as moved and seconded separately. I mean, if the same person wanted to second them both, that's fine. Is there somebody who would second both amendments?
Yes, I would like to.
So, Jimmy, you're happy to be the seconder for both?
Yes, yes.
All right. So that also now puts the amendments on the table. So what I'd propose to do is to have one debate, and then I'll put the amendments separately. So item 2 and then item 3 as they appear on the screen, and then obviously put the motion either as amended or not, as the case may be. So now moving into debate, who would like to speak to this? Yanni. And if I can request once again that you use the hand up feature so that you move to the top of the screen. So moving into debate, Yanni.
Just need a little bit of time between the screen and the agenda. But yeah, thank you. Just to say, we have had a memo on the 3rd of November 2020 in regards to metal scrapping businesses. And the staff advice at that time was that the issues identified were primarily related to noise, visual amenity, rubbish blowing, and dust. And the complaints related to noise resulted in the environmental health officers attending the site and undertaking noise measurements. So basically what staff have said is, that they have acknowledged that there is an issue, and 3.5 said staff could consider a change to resource consent, to require resource consent for metal scrapping activities. And so, yeah, I just think we need to respond to what people have told us through the LTP, and I appreciate that it's not a budget issue, it is a district planning issue. But I think we do need to get the report. I invite anyone to go and look at what's happening down Garlands Road and question whether you think that's acceptable in the middle of a residential neighbourhood. You've got massive amounts of cars and a whole bunch of rubbish being stockpiled. We've had fires in places like Auckland on similar sites. So imagine if we had a fire at this site next to the river, what would happen in terms of the contaminants, what would happen in terms of the impact on the local neighbourhood. So I think, this is a really simple request. Let's progress this and get a report on the options, and then we can have the substantive debate rather than just getting another memo, which we've already had, which basically says that we could consider a change to require a resource consent for these activities. The second point I want to make is just around the trees. So as the chair of the tree policy hearing, it became very apparent that we lack basic information about our tree canopy, but that there are solutions with technology that could be incredibly beneficial to us as a city who has one of the lowest rates of tree canopy coverage out of any major city in New Zealand, to understanding the impact of things like our district planning and our planting programs. So from a climate change point of view, from a sustainability point of view, from an ecological point of view, it makes sense to get this information. And we are running at a deficit, and the longer that we delay getting this technology and this understanding, the greater risk we have of losing mature trees that deal with the sustainability issues that we're facing and the climate change issues that we're facing as a council. So I just really want to get on top of this. The staff have said that they've done a lot of work on this. There is technology that they've been looking at for some time now. The staff said during the LTP that this was could be funded through existing budgets, and it would be. I just want to get on and get it done. And even if that report, I think getting the report in October makes sense. And even if that requires some further work, at least we can have visibility of what's required to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne.
Yeah, kia ora, and apologies to you before to just throwing that question in there. That was unfair. I'm sorry about that. But I did want to say how much I appreciate the fact that this work has been done, and that it's reassuring that the issues that were raised through these amendments that weren't amendments are being considered seriously. So thank you for that. I'm really glad to see number 8, that staff will work with the aged concerned to review how effective council is in meeting the needs of residents over 65. And I look forward to hearing back and wondering if elected members can have be involved in that process. Would be good to know. Also, the anxiety about the growth out in the southwest, number 40. It's great to know that the Otatahi Christchurch spatial plan is being prepared, and just wondering if there does need to be input from community boards and also residents, and would be interested to know how that will go. So really appreciate the work that's being done here and look forward to the reports coming back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike.
Sorry, I just need a bit of clarification because the two amendments have disappeared from the screen.
Can we go back to the split screen, please?
Yeah, can I get clarification that these are not now no longer reports that are being requested, but just some advice? So therefore, it would not come as go for a report structure and with the actual expense associated with a report.
Advice is what's being asked for, so we'll provide advice.
Yeah, I think my resolution was for a report, so it's been modified.
So I just want to make sure that we're going to be voting on the same thing because, you know, advice to me would be an email, where a report is obviously a much more detailed process that will cost actually significant money.
All right, so we've got the answer from Miles, but Yanni, you just made a comment that the wording in front of us is different than the wording that you put forward.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
okay.
that means, as the chair of the meeting, I need to check that you're comfortable with the changes which have been made, and whether what you've moved is actually, or what's on the screen is what you've intended to move.
No, that's okay. That was the I've sent 2 emails, and that was in the second one, so that is correct. I'm happy just to get the advice. I guess the key thing is that we can progress it and have a way forward in that advice. So maybe it's best just to leave it.
All right, that's great. So that answers my question. You're comfortable with what's in front of us. Mike, you're comfortable with Miles's answer to your question and the wording that's there as well?
Yeah. Advice is a lot different than a report. So it's fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Andrew, it's Sam here. Just in light of that, I don't know how Sarah would feel, but I mean, if it's given its only advice, so it's sort of nothing. We could probably just incorporate them into the main one if it saves time.
So as the mover, you're happy for this to be incorporated
advice,
into
so
the resolution. Sarah, can I get an indication from you whether you're comfortable with that as the seconder?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so let's just incorporate this into the main resolution. So we now no longer need to consider these as amendments. It's now in the main resolution, so that's fine. All right, so having done that, can we now come off the split screen back into the screen where I can see everybody? That's great, thank you very much indeed. And is there anybody else wishes to speak to this? All right, in that case, I'll essentially reiterate the comments which were made by Anne and thank staff for the work that's been done on what were matters that were put forward, obviously intended at the time to be considered as amendments to the long-term plan, and for various reasons they were referred into this process. This is a reasonably quick report back considering the amount of work that's needed to be done on some of these. Many of them are referred into other processes and for consideration in the future, and we obviously look forward to picking them up through those processes. But Peter, thank you for the presentation of this report and the work that's been done by a number of staff to get us to this point, and a process that we can understand and respect moving forward, so that we're able to continue to consider these items that were raised by councillors or groups of councillors as part of that long-term plan process. So yeah, it's good to see the work done, and we look forward to picking these up as noted in the table.
No problem, thank you.
So I will now put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Or raise a hand.
Aye.
Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. So Peter, now Leah is now presenting, as I understand it, the item 9, the LTP 2021 closeout report. So Leah, item 9, let's come to you for opening remarks on this report, please.
No, I think Peter's doing it.
Okay, right? So on my run sheet I've got you, but Peter's here in the room. No, that's all right.
So you're welcome to it, Leah.
Come to you for some opening remarks on this report.
Okay, no problem. Basically, this committee asked for a report back in April on the LTP to close out lessons learned while the memories are still fresh. We did that not by narrative, but by running a survey that went through both senior management of staff right the way down to operational level. It also included community boards and elected members. As you'll recall, we ran that over an extended period to get more feedback. That was analysed by the monitoring and research team using the same approach that they did for submissions to the LTP. That produced quite a clear, plain English document. Hopefully this is in the same vein. The results are attached and we'll move to those in a moment. The Audit and Risk Committee has also requested a copy of it. The objective, of course, is that we acknowledge the good parts of the process and we take any lessons learned forward into future letters of expectation from councillors and the future LTP processes. There may even be some knock on into annual plan processes, but by and large, it will really reflect on the next LTP. So the purpose of this was to break it down by component of the LTP, understand what went well, what didn't, and what we need to remember next time. So that's the basis of this document. Moving forward to the closeout report itself, just bear with me while I'm juggling several screens here. The key messages are summarised on the front page. They're summarised very nicely and in a succinct way. The key point is that the co-development process between councillors and staff went very well. There was almost unanimous feedback on that. There was full transparency of OPEX review and savings, a deep understanding of the capital program. We saw information that had never been put in such a strategic way before. It was a lift up from the operational level of the last few years. The activity plans gave everybody a very thorough view of every part of the engine room of the organisation. Levels of service were clear to councillors and transparent, including those for internal services. So it was a very thorough review. Sometimes, at times, a little tedious, but it meant that no stone was left unturned. The strategies that underpin the LTP were a big improvement on previous ones. So the infrastructure strategy is a genuinely strategic document now, and I'd like to acknowledge our colleagues in strategy who helped put it there. The finance strategy is a bigger, more longer-term view than before, and both of them powered the consultation document, and there seems to be widespread agreement that that was the most superior one we've come up with. It was clear. It drew a high level of quite intelligent and articulate responses from the community. So that was a success. And we also managed to do something that I believe no other council has done, which was opt for a single optimum solution for the LTP, rather than presenting a series of options, some of which we know were not optimal. But on the face of it, that's what the legislation calls for. Now, that took a little bit of work with Audit New Zealand to reach that point. But the argument was won by simply the thoroughness of the process. Everything that I talked about earlier, OPEX, CAPEX review, all of those things were so thorough that we were able to mount a convincing and compelling argument that the LTP option we were putting forward was the best one for the city. And ultimately that was accepted and has set a precedent across New Zealand local government. Now there's some other detail there. Officer responses to individual submissions, the amendment process, which identified the amendments we just spoke about in the previous item. All of that was better than surprises on the day, lack of structure, lack of process. So while the rest of the document, and I'm not going to go through each page of it, spells out fine tuning and tweaks to things like asset plans and so forth, that overview had widespread acceptance among all the survey respondents, and it seems to be the state of play in most people's minds. So at that point, I'm happy to take questions on individual technical items that come up later in the document, but that is the 5-minute overview of the LTP. I think to round it off at a personal level, and some of you have heard this little speech before, remembering that we came off the back of not one but two annual plans. The first annual plan was pre-lockdown. pre-COVID, and the second was with all COVID impacts incorporated. So we had 2 annual plans in the middle of the LTP process. We also had the financial impacts of lost revenue and lack of international visitors and tourists and so forth. In there, we ran a complete zero-based budget process. We had to deal with great volatility in the capital program with monies coming in from central government and other variables. The net effect was that we've got no change to core levels of service for the city. We have an expansive capital program that will take the city forward in terms of infrastructure, jobs, employment, and a rates rise that is, you know, there are arguments about the level, but certainly relative to other major metros and other even medium-sized cities around New Zealand is relatively low. So that combination is quite difficult under the circumstances we were in. And having to do that, or being able to do that in a very cooperative, open, collegiate way between management and governance was quite a trek to pull off. And I'd just like to acknowledge the goodwill that went in from everybody involved in that process. So at that point, I'd probably hand back to councillors and see if there are any questions about specific issues.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for the comments and for the report. Let's now move to questions. So if people could raise their hand if they've got a question for Peter. No questions on this one. All right. So we've got a recommendation or a number of recommendations in front of us. I'll just note that this same report is going to the Audit and Risk Management Committee next Friday for their information, and obviously just to close the loop on this for the Audit and Risk Committee as well. I'm happy to move the recommendations in front of us. Do I have a seconder?
I'll say
Sarah Campbell. Sarah? Yeah, thank you. So moved by Andrew, seconded by Sarah. Is there any debate on this? Jimmy Chen.
Thank you, Chair. So firstly, I would like to take this opportunity, particularly to acknowledge the staff, particularly under the Chief Executive Don, and also Peter Ryan and all those staff. They have done an amazing job. We go through almost the one whole year through this long-term plan, and also thank you for the Deputy Mayor Andrew Turner, particularly chairing a number of the key activity plan. That's actually for the positive preparing for our long-term plan, the 2021 to 31 the process. So to make this process very successful. But I think the feedback, regarding to those funding, that's very crucial and important, because like Peter, he mentioned earlier, there's 58 responses from the elected member and also from the staff, and also we listen and we review all those fundings. That's very, very comprehensive. Particularly, my view, this the kind of funding, it's not a report only. Actually, it's for our future, the continue the improvement of a long-term plan process. Because in here, particularly mentioned the funding, like to give the elect member, councillor, even to the community board, can get involved in the early stage. Particularly, like we review those the strategic framework in the early stage, because there's a strategic framework that's very crucial, to include in those strategic directions. Those are the principles, are the common outcomes, particularly for the strategic priorities. All those the long-term plan, annual plan should be follow this strategic direction. So my personal view, that's very, very crucial. The other one we particularly highlight, our future is continue to build on the climate change, and also resilient community, and to avoid any kind of risk, long-term plan. But how do we to make that happen? So the future, the the annual plan in an annual basis. That's very, very crucial and important. The other one is whether still can possible because the community boards in the local level, whether those chair and deputy chair can be still slightly earlier to get involved in our discussion of this process long-term plan. So summary, generally speaking, it's very successful long-term plan process. So I look forward to for the future improvement for the next and following the long-term plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie.
I was going to say pretty much exactly what Jimmy said, just that I thought the LTP process was a good process and it was very collaborative and very long. And I wanted to thank Andrew again for leading that process too. And I know we just had the amendment report just before, but I thought actually that process of writing amendments and putting them through and looking at each of them, I actually thought that was very effective and I was very pleased with it, but it was also helped by the fact that our local community board governance team, the Spraden Cashmere team, actually helped write some of the amendments that I put forward for that, and they ended up being successful. So I think what that says is that we do, again, like Jimmy said, need to look more carefully, thoroughly as councillors and take responsibility too to make sure the community board plans have a larger voice when we go through this process, because it's quite easy for those things to get lost with everything else that we're looking at. So I'd really like that to be a bit more of a focus for the next term.
Thank you very much. Tim.
Thank you, Andrew. And I won't reiterate too much with regards to thanking the team that put this together. It was very, very good. One thing, though, that we do need to always concentrate on, we talk a lot always about trying to get those groups, whether they're minority groups or others that have not been part of the consultation before, to try and bring them in. I know that in our ward, we had one group who chose to come through one email, but that was how they chose to do it, and put all their emails in that, and it wasn't really counted. So I think we still have a wee way to go with regards to how our bureaucracy works and it doesn't fit in with those new groups approaching us, and it was kind of a bit of a negative for them. And so I think there are always ways to improve. It was an outstanding way to go forward, but I do think we need to take that on board if we're going to have some real value in getting any new groups, irrelevant of whether they're minority or English language as a second language. We have to look at what we do and how we do that, and I think there's still some work to do there. So thank you.
Thank you. Anne.
Right. Yeah, just following on from that, this is the ongoing challenge is always to make this complex document and information understandable and accessible to everybody. And going into the annual plan, I think that is got to be key in terms of how we design the information that we put out to the community. And I do wonder if there's an opportunity to have a working group or to come together representing, I know we have our multicultural advisory group, but a wider group of people to come together with elected members is actually really design, along with Katie and the team, the type of information that could be really relevant and useful. So I look forward to having more conversations about that. I think that's a huge challenge for us to make sure that all residents understand exactly the decisions that are being made and that they have a voice in them. But I also would like to thank everybody that was involved in this. It was terrific, really positive process. So thank you.
Thank you. Pauline.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's good now. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, I support everything everybody said. It was a great process. Gosh, we got to know each other pretty well, didn't we? Spending hours and hours and hours together. But it was a really good process in that way. I particularly like to acknowledge the consultation document. I think it was really clear with really good diagrams, pictures, graphs, explanations and links. And I think that was reflected in the way the submitters came and spoke to us in the chamber there. They had a really good understanding, it seemed to me, of actually not just, look, it's not just about what I want, it's actually a whole global picture of the situation of the finances, the balancing out over all our programs, everything that we're doing in the city of Christchurch. It seemed to me that people had a lot more understanding of that and reaching out and wanting to partner with us. And as a result, we've come out of this with having established a series of partnership funds, which is really incredible. And we're starting to see those come to fruition now. The community partnership funds, the environment funds, the biodiversity ones, the climate change, the water partnership. So I think that is a wonderful turn of events that we're seeing in this city, that we're actually all beginning to work together for the betterment of Christchurch. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that. I think it's a really important step for our city, and we're just going forwards. And thank you, Peter, for all the work you've done, and the staff for everything on this. So it was a good process. Cheers.
Thank you. Leanne.
Just briefly, I kind of wanted to acknowledge, and I accept what others have said, I just wanted to acknowledge the significance of the getting the audit office to accept the fact that we had considered the options and that some things were just essentially non-negotiables. We had to put them out there. The investment in the Three Waters infrastructure, for example, even with the uncertainty that we face, it was an absolute obligation that we had, not just to our current generations, but to future generations as well. So I think that is a bit of a turning point for where councils may be able to go in the future in terms of developing long-term plans. It's interesting, I was just watching a feed on Twitter this morning, which was making some comments around government spending, and the comment was made, I'd like to see budgets more like LTPs so that the media and the public can see the true cost, options and trade-offs. And I think that there's a lot of merit in that often we're put under more scrutiny of spending at a local government level than central government is. And some of the advantages of that approach at the local government level could actually benefit central government, but then some of the streamlining of the processes could benefit the way that local government's able to engage much more upfront and personally with its residents. So, you know, I just think that staff have done an incredible job this time round to really bring all of the information in front of us, and it is a complex set of information. I did take note from the fact that we do need to bring forward the amendment time so that staff have got time to actually do the work, so that when we make considered decisions at the sort of 11th hour, as it were, that sufficient work has been able to be done in order to make for a meaningful process. So thank you very much, Peter, for an excellent report, and I'm happy to support that today.
Thank you. Yanni.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I want to acknowledge all the work that's gone in. Obviously, it's a pretty exhaustive process. I think from my point of view, like, appreciate the point that the Mayor's just made, but, you know, to be fair, some of these issues were raised over a year ago with the organisation. So if you look at the Bromley traffic issue, that was in the annual plan submission that the community board had made. It was then again in the LTP submission, and it was still ruled out of order to get an amendment. So if we can't get advice within a year on to do something constructive on a community board plan, then I don't think that's just 11th hour. I think there's some issues we need to deal with the organisation. I think the other change is that community boards are now required to purchase services from the council. So that's a completely different approach than what we've had many years ago, which now means that for the boards to do anything, they have to find the budget and then pay for the services from the council HQ. And I think that is quite an inefficient and ineffective way of dealing with things that the community have raised. So I do think we can look towards some improvements there, and I'm hopeful, optimistic that our strengthening community strategy refresh that we're doing, one that we've just agreed to put out for consultation yesterday, can maybe start to resolve some of those efficiencies at a local level. I think the frustration for people in the community was around the access to the information, and I want to acknowledge the staff using new technology this time to try and give greater clarity around the different projects. Although, again, I think that's a bit of a work in progress, and that we do need to try and make the capital program sheets available. But, you know, at least we've tried something new to give people greater information. It was interesting. I went back and looked at a community wood plan from, I think it was 1999, and it had detailed information on a line item basis for what was happening in the local board area. And I think we still need to try and think about how we can provide meaningful information at a local level to help people engage in the process. And certainly a number of submissions that we heard, people were quite critical of the difficulty in finding information and getting responses to questions that they had asked well ahead of the time. But I just wanted to acknowledge that this is really good to get a report from staff looking at lessons learned and improvements that we can make. And I just wanted to support the ongoing continuous improvement we have around these processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wanting to speak to this? All right. So certainly from my point of view, really good to get this closeout report. I think it's good practice that we're looking at this in this way relatively quickly after the end of the process. I reiterate the comments that I made in relation to the financial performance report. This LTP was developed during what was anything but a normal year, with a number of other challenges and matters of priority that were going on at the same time, largely because of COVID. Peter certainly made the comment that the development of this LTP came on the back of what had been anything but normal annual plan process, where we essentially had to do the annual plan twice because of the effects of COVID. The highlights and standouts for me was the co-creative approach that we took to the development of this long-term plan. Certainly the workshops and the briefings where relevant, knowledgeable staff were working closely with elected members to do a deep dive into particular areas, both in terms of operational and levels of service, and also looking in detail at the capital program, and with a really strong focus for the capital program, not only on affordability, but also on deliverability. And that's something that I've certainly raised in every annual plan and long-term plan while I've been around the table. But I think we really took that very seriously this time, looking at the deliverability of the capital program at the same time as we were looking at its affordability. In terms of the amendments process and in terms of the consultation process, I felt the simplicity and the plain language in the consultation document and the way that particular questions were put forward generated meaningful answers, meaningful comment and engagement feedback from the community that we were actually able to take into account and work with. And I think we demonstrated that we listened to a lot of that feedback in the way that the amendments were put forward and dealt with. A number of the amendments that were put forward did result in changes to the final plan, and a lot of those amendments responded directly to the feedback that we'd had from residents in relation to that very clear consultation document that we put out. So really, they were just some highlights for me. Overall, I think it was a good collaborative, co-creative process. There's a lot of good that we would want to replicate in future long-term plans. And clearly there are some improvements that we could make as we would expect. And I think the process that we've gone through with this report and the survey that's been taken into account as well was a good way of capturing that information in a meaningful way. The job now is to make sure that we put those learnings into practice in future annual plan and particularly future long-term plan processes. But thanks to everybody involved in getting us to this point. So in the absence of any further comments, I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. So my proposal now, given that we've got Peter still at the table, is to move straight into item 10, the annual plan 22-23 process. So Peter, have you got any comments that you'd like to make on this report, please?
Just a few brief ones. I mean, it does feel a little over the top to have walked straight out of the LTP into the annual plan, but the purpose of this report is to try to make this as painless as possible at a process level and to take advantage of the fact that we just had such a strong LTP. So look, an annual plan, for those who have not been close to them over many years, is really just a schedule of changes from the LTP. Life goes on. As quickly as you finalise an LTP, some projects move, some budgets move, maybe some levels of service move. The purpose of the annual plan is to make those life goes on changes transparent to the community. So they can be as small as, well, it's year one, nothing has changed very much, we don't really have anything to report, all the way through to we're going to rejig everything and basically have another amended LTP. Now, on that spectrum, this paper is proposing that because of the strength of the LTP we've just done, it will be possible to capture any changes and make them transparent without going into an elaborate or full-blown process that really would represent drag for both governance and management if we were to do that. Now, it depends on the nature of the proposals that council has put up. So the idea here is that we understand the process after we've understood what councillors require. Now, that means, I'm just scanning through the recommendations here. That means that at a process level, what we're looking for is to do a roundup in September with workshops with councillors to understand what changes they or the boards might be seeking for the annual plan. And at the same time, management will do its own reviews of tweaks and fine-tunings. At that point, when we understand what the wish lists look like, we can work out how to do the lightest possible process that does the content justice. So that means talking to our colleagues in legal services and getting the process right. If it goes the way it could go, which is to say that there are some relatively low-level changes, we could have a light annual plan process, which means the organisation could focus on delivery and getting the basics right and all of the key messages that the executive team has proposed, while councillors can crack on with the development of the city. So that's the theory. We've spent nearly 18 months planning, and now we're in the let's deliver, let's get it right phase. So workshops in September, decision-making in early October on what the process needs to look like, then workshops in November with councillors to finalise the actual content, and then going into the normal timeframes of adopt a draft annual plan in February, go out for consultation if required. And I say if required because it's not a position Christchurch has been in since the earthquakes, but if you have a very, very light annual plan, in other words, just some very low-level non-material movement, we're not actually required to consult at all. So that's the spectrum we operate on. We could go from there's almost nothing to report right the way through to, oh my God, let's rebuild everything from scratch, which I think most people are keen to avoid. And then adopt a final in June of next year. Now, obviously the Three Waters reform agenda and other reforms will have an impact in there somewhere. We don't know all the details of those impacts. Like the LTP, we'll have to soak them up as we go along, be adaptive and be flexible. So that's the proposal. The point here is to frame the possibility of a light process off the back of a strong one, and to set out the timeline on how that would unfold. And if it doesn't turn out to be a light process, at least we have early knowledge of what the process needs to be. The key thing we need to avoid is that we go down the path of an annual plan process and then end up trying to amend the LTP after a long lead in with the wrong process. So we need to not shoot ourselves in the foot in that regard. So that's the options in a nutshell. We're seeking your approval to follow the timeline in the officer recommendations.
Thank you, Peter. Now, Miles, you're indicating you've got some comments.
Thank you, Chair. Look, just building on Peter's comments around some uncharted waters in front of us as well. And staff are not going to lose sight of the fact that we're certainly dealing with one at the moment with COVID, and that depending on the outcomes of that may also have to be put into the process around the annual plan consideration, as well as the reform process that is in front of us. So just hopefully give councillors some comfort that staff are thinking about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this report? So I've got Sam, Jimmy and Anne and Yanni. Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, for this. So just to confirm, looking at the LTP amendment report we passed before, where staff are working on some of those potentially to bring back reports to I guess, fuel the annual plan. So this process wouldn't preclude any of them being adopted if the council chose to?
No, not at all. In fact, the process doesn't constrain councillors on what they propose at all. It merely says that if what they end up proposing, the content is legally speaking light enough, we could run a light process. And if what they're proposing isn't, then at least we understand what process we need to run. It doesn't constrain you in any way.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Peter, I have one question, particular based on your milestone in September. You will have the briefings to the councillor and also the committee board member. However, our draft, the annual plan, will be approved in February. I'm concerned between these kind of 5 months. If any the circumstances, environment, or information has been changed, how to reflect the update, the status, and then we can make the proper decision to approve those draft long-term plan put to the consultation. Second one is in March, and probably between March and April, regarding consultation. Previous email, I echo with the team and also with Anne's the comments. Particular, this second year our long-term plan, 2021 to 31. So this annual plan should be very practical, implementable for cover all those residents, particularly for repair, the eligible. So regarding the consultation, I'm not sure whether it's possible to cover most of the people, most of the group as possible. This is my concern. Yes.
Okay, tackling those two one at a time. In terms of circumstances changing between September and February, that's normal. It's Christchurch. We've got used to dealing with quick ball. If something moves, our first principle is to go back to ELT and the council with that change. So September, yeah, we would gather your, if you like, wish list. But all the way through November, we'd be working with you on how that's playing out and if anything has changed. We also do the same in late January, early February, because by then the final numbers have shaken down, to pre-brief you before the annual plan meeting to say, this has moved, this has changed. We're used to this environment because, quite frankly, there hasn't been a normal plan since the earthquakes. We're used to adapting and quick ball on the run. So the principle, though, is always, if it moves, we tell you, and we tell you what the implications are, and then you can reposition yourself if you need to. On the second one, consultation, remembering that the annual plan is a schedule of changes. It's not a new or mini LTP, or it doesn't have to be. It can simply be a very small document at times of, these are some non-material things that have moved. We're just telling you so you know. And you would scale your consultation accordingly. The one thing we probably don't want to do is, if it turns out to be a light annual plan, is over-consult and overdo it when in fact there's not much message there to go with. So we kind of scale the degree of communication to the degree of importance that the message has. If it's a small number of non-material projects move their timelines, or there are some minor tweaks to budgets, it's probably isn't worth dragging in a huge amount of consultation effort for that. But again, in the principle of this report is the process will follow what your content needs to be. We're simply setting out the spectrum of options that you've got in front of you, and the light option could be the one you want.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Dawn, you're indicating you've got some comment that you'd like to make.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to reinforce Peter's points, but to reflect back to members. If you think we're now in August and we're dealing with the closeout of an LTP that looks at a 10-year budget position, and I would describe that as 10 years, but the first 3 years as a real hard budget position. If an annual plan turns into an LTP, the organisation will just spend all of its time doing budgetary work and not actually delivering what it is that members require us to do. So that we are at the end of a very deep and wide LTP process. We need to take the best of that, make sure we're delivering what you require us to do, and just do the adjustments where we need to be, recognising September starts next week. Thank you.
Thank you. I've now got Anne and Yanni. So Anne.
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, Peter, again. You were saying that if it, it looks as if it may be just a light annual plan and may not need to be consulted on. Is there, however, an opportunity for us to communicate somewhere in there to reinforce some of the information that we gave to people through the LTP, just to kind of remind them and to take the opportunity to educate and inform again, rather than consult, but just to say, hey, here's a heads up, this is where we're at and this is what we've done and this is where we're heading. Is there an opportunity for that to happen?
That's an excellent point, Anne. If, for example, the content the council has proposed meant a light process, instead of formally consulting, and you know that's very bound by all kinds of legal constraints and walls, we could instead run a communications process and say, look, here's our schedule of changes, and here's all the other messages we want to bring across as well. Yes. That's very difficult to do in the confines of the legal process. But if you're not bound by the legal process, you could turn it into a communication exercise, two-way communication exercise that's wider than a small handful of changes. So yeah, I would think that the idea would be, if we are going light, that we go out with a proper communications package that could actually in a lot of ways be better than the formal bound sort of consultation.
Right, and following on from that, perhaps in that between November and February sort of, if, there might be a potential to get a working group together to just kind of really give some ideas about design features and communication. I know that we have an amazing communications team, but sometimes seeing things through the eyes of someone who doesn't understand a lot of this language might be useful.
Well, that would be particularly the case if we're going with a communication rather than a formal consultation, because that way the content and the style is not bound by the law.
That's
the
right.
problem with the LTP one is that it's heavily constrained by all kinds of legal directives, whereas this, if it were light, would be open to how we would like to do it from scratch as human beings talking to our community. So in many ways, it would actually be a real opportunity.
Sounds like it. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yanni.
Thank you. I just wanted to check, because we've had a few things that have been, like just in the previous report, that the timeframe won't align to getting the feedback from the boards to put capital projects forward. So I just wanted to check on that. Also, obviously, the multi-use arena will be the big one, and we don't know what's going to happen with that, but we know that there's a large degree of risk. So again, that timing of getting that report doesn't really align to the decision that we need to make about whether we go out for a full consultation or not. So I was just interested in some feedback on that.
Well, my first question would be around the boards. I noticed the report back, the lessons learned said we need to do better with the boards, but my initial response would be, surely we would be looking to the board plans for any proposed changes to the LTP, rather than making up a new approach on the fly.
The problem is, if I just clarify, the problem is that the board plans still require work to be done. So if you take Bromley traffic, and sorry to keep going back, but it's been going on for nearly 5 years, and it's just been a constant source of, there's no money available to do the planning work to inform a resolution in the annual plan or the LTP. It's always next year, and then there's no money to do the work in the meantime. So the problem is with the boards is that if they can't get the work done to inform a submission to the annual plan about what's required, they get told that they can't put amendments up, or those amendments get ruled out of order. So, you know, it's a bit of a chicken and egg, and it just seems to be a very unsatisfactory one. I mean, the other one that I've raised, and I think the board's raised it as well, is getting some growth projects in existing brownfield sites that can be funded through development contributions. And I know we've got another workshop on that in October, so I'm hopeful that through that process we will have time. But again, that process is running pretty close to the line in terms of getting any capital projects put forward from a community board process. Is there a resource that boards can tap into to get the work done to inform what they might require for the community board plans? I think that's really at the heart of the issue.
I think it depends on what they're trying to do, whether it's transport or parks or water related, or it would need to be resource specific. But overall, to try to answer your question, there'll be 3 bites of the cherry here. There'll be the September roundup, which may now, given lockdowns, spill possibly into early October. There'll be the November workshops, and there'll be more than one of those. And then there would be the pre-meetings and the actual adoption in late January, early February. So it isn't like there's only one bus here. There's going to be a number of opportunities, and I would have thought that in the time frame, those 3 rounds of opportunities between now and February, there would be some way where we can do justice to what the boards are looking for. The exact process to do that and which technical staff need to assist with what proposal is probably a bit too big to cover in 2 minutes here. But look, I'd be very happy to work with you on how we can get that done within the timeframes.
Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Miles, you're indicating a contribution?
Yes, sorry, Peter's pretty much covered it. I just wanted to point out that September discussion with community boards, and obviously that will pick those sorts of things up, hopefully, and then we can bring staff in as required based on the community board feedback.
Thank you. Tim, you've got a hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it just seems that if someone were watching this, that there'd be one issue, traffic issue, which wasn't getting through. Staff have to deal with every community board, and there's a hierarchy of risk, etc., which the staff, and I'm not totally on board with it, but we all have to go through the same system, and it's not devaluing the one issue over another. There's just a balance here right across all community boards. We all have traffic issues, and staff have to weigh those up, and it's not like just putting one at the back. It's just the way it is, but it isn't an ideal situation, but it is the only way to deal with it. So I just thought.
Is this leading to a question, Tim? Or?
No, I just thought if people are watching this live streamed, they do have to understand the process and what all community boards, the frustration that we all have, because all communities have frustration with traffic issues, but there is a process which we have to go through.
Are there further questions? Done with questions. All right, now, Phil, you've indicated you'd like to move this recommendation.
Absolutely, thank you.
And do I have a seconder?
Okay, I'm second.
So Jimmy will second. So this is moved by Phil, seconded by Jimmy. Is there any debate? Nobody indicating debate. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye or raise a hand. Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Now, we'd said that we would break for morning tea as close to 11 o'clock as we could. It's now 5 past. So what I'd propose is that we take a 15-minute break and come back at 11:20 when we deal with, in the open agenda, items 12 and 15, and then we'll move on from there. So we'll come back for item 12 at 11:20. So I'll adjourn the meeting until 11:20. Thank you. Ask that people that are here, councillors that are here, put their cameras on so that we Indeed. So let's now reopen the meeting then. And just checking that we're back. We are live streaming at the moment as well.
Yes, we are.
We are. Excellent. Thank you. So now let's then reopen the meeting and proceed with item 12, the capital project performance report. Ruth, I'll get to present this, just reiterating the point I made earlier in the meeting. If there are specific questions on particular projects that Ruth isn't able to answer, it may be that we don't have staff in the room to provide answers. We may need to take those answers offline for answer by way of an email or a memo. Ruth, I'll now come to you to present this report, and thank you very much indeed.
Cool. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So capital project performance report, this is to the end of July, so it's the first report that you're getting for financial year 22. So you'll see that the current forecast for our core program that is on page 110 is 375.6 against a budget of 408 million. So that's a 92% delivery against our core. Including external funded, we are forecasting a delivery of 95%. So that means we are currently in a carry forward position against the core program. So this is unique for this time of year and does reflect that we've been focusing across all of council on analysis and refinement of forecasts, ensuring that they're reliable, realistic, and does consider risk as well. So what that means as well is that getting that visibility earlier enables us to identify and also act earlier in order to deliver on our committed budget. So to the financial year 22 capital budget, this is higher than what we had in financial year 21. So all delivery units will require a step change in their delivery. And the majority of the additional budget this financial year sits within the Three Waters unit. So they've got over $200 million to deliver this year. So there is commentary on deliverability within the report from pages 111 to 114. We do have the delivery leads, some of them present in the meeting. If there's any specific questions around deliverability, the breakdown per month, so similar to what we provided last financial year, is from pages 115 to 124. So you'll be able to understand how each of those monthly forecasts are made up by delivery unit. So before we go to questions, I do have some additional information over and above what you've got on the report in relation to COVID potential impacts. So on page 131 of the report, you'll see the reason why we would receive cost-related variations on capital projects. Joe's just put up an initial view for you in terms of the potential exposure that we might have in relation to contractor claims. So these are all the projects that are currently in construction. And I do need to say that this is a very initial assessment of the projects that are in construction and that are at risk of cost claims. So this doesn't mean that we're going to get cost claims on all of these projects. It just means that they are at risk. Now, the numbers there are the current financial year forecast for those projects is not the potential variation amount that we might receive on those projects. So I will talk a little bit around the potential variation amount. And again, this is very pie in the sky, but it is based on some context in terms of what we saw last year. So last year of the projects that we had in construction, we had 46 claims from contractors, and that was a total of 6.5 million in their claims. And that was based on alert level 1, 3 and 4 being 7.5 weeks and alert level 2 being another 4 weeks. So we've now settled 97% of those claims, and against that 6.5 million in contractor claims, the worst case scenario is that we will have paid out 4.7 million. So that's 72% of what was claimed by the contractors. So in addition to this slide that gives you initial view of projects that we've currently got in construction and may be subject to a cost-related risk, we've also uploaded on the hub an initial view of the current supply chain risks and issues that we're experiencing on capital projects. So the risks are being addressed by each project, but at a high level being mitigated through early procuring, leveraging local supply and ordering and purchasing materials earlier. So future reports to the committee will provide updates on all this information. So I'm happy to take any questions that you've got now.
So Ruth, thank you. And that's very helpful and very timely to be putting this information in front of us. A first question from me, obviously alert levels 4, 3 and 2 allow for different levels of activity. Have you got any comment on the effect of each of the levels and the length of time we might be in those levels on the sort of forecasts you're putting in front of us at the moment?
So the majority of the variations came in alert level 3 and 4. That was both extension of time claims and cost. There was very little in alert level 2. It was more around health and safety stuff. Yeah,
so if we ended up going from a alert level 4 to level 3, and then, for example, in an extended period of level 2, the effect of that would be expected to be less than a projected a longer time in alert level 4 or 3.
I'm probably not expert to provide you a proper response to that. That would probably need to come from an engineer to the contract.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And thanks for the information that you've provided this morning. It's useful. So moving to questions, I've got Sam and then Jimmy. Sam.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ruth. Look, just one, and it would just be useful to jog my memory. At level 3 last year, were we able to get people out working? I think we did Riccarton Road or Victoria Street or something, didn't we, from memory?
Yeah, we were able to put more projects out there in alert level 3.
So in terms of that deliverability, are you relatively confident that'll be kind of the same this year round? I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but at level 3, it's sort of our expectation we can get people back out there doing stuff while the roads aren't
definitely. Yep, all of our delivery units are planning for alert level 3 now, so or may have planned in terms of what projects are going to go out. So future reports will provide you, if we are in level 3, what projects have been put back out again.
Yeah, because things like Riccarton Road at the moment, which are there's a significant amount of work being done there. It may speed it up, in fact, having no traffic and the like going down it. So it'd be cool to see how that plays out.
Cool.
All right, thank you very much. Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. Ruth, thank you so much for your presentation. Because of this item, I sent the email to the Office of CE and the CC to the Deputy Mayor. Have 9 questions, but I just want to confirm, because today is still due to the COVID-19, just confirm 2 issue project, whether you are aware or not. If you are not aware, maybe the offline is okay, but because of particular community concerned this issue. First one is on page 112, the major facility bullet point 1, focus on the Hornby Library, customer service, and Southwest Leisure Center. Because previous months, for a long time, always focus on those the construction will start from the mid of July, but suddenly this information mentioned will start until the early of next year. So I just want to know what is update status regarding to the contract of this construction contract awarded. What is the update status? Whether will be the delay for further 6 months?
I'm not sure if Alistair is online. We may need to come back to you with some answers on that, Jimmy.
Okay, thank you. Second one is the also committee particular concern, the Horseway Junction Road extension. Because from previous months, for a long time, during the meeting, I asked you or staff, etc., always mention the forecast delivery date, will be in May of 2022, but the list information, this time information on page 139 is further delayed to June 2023, which means a delay for 1 year and 1 month. So I just want to know what's the rationale. Why have this further significant delay?
Lynette's online, so she'll be able to respond to that.
Okay, thank you.
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Horsell Junction Road, Councillor Chen, was extended in the delivery period for Horsell Junction Road was extended in the LTP. So as Ruth indicated earlier, the last report was to the end of financial year. Between that report and this report, they've been reprofiled and rebaselined to line up with the profile that changed as part of the long-term plan. We are still working to try and finish it to the dates we expected, and we've previously talked to, but we have limited. We're being probably more pessimistic in this round of reporting. We're hoping we can bring that back for you over the next few months as we get better information from KiwiRail.
At the moment, still uncertainty regarding to the KiwiRail, the status. I mean, like your two different design, civil design and your signal design, am I right?
So we've always been talking to the fact that we have uncertainty because third parties are delivering this for us. So we're trying to be, we're probably reasonably pessimistic in this round of reporting, but we are hoping over the next few months we can get that better. We're expecting more information back from KiwiRail, one at the end of August when they're supposed to have finished their their civils design, and then again at the end of November when they finish their signals design.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I'll come to Mike next. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually my question, I guess, is for Lynette as well and around the KiwiRail. And it obviously appears like there hasn't been much progress because it just seems to get pushed out continually. Is this an issue that's happening across the country?
So since last meeting, because you did raise it with us last meeting as well, yes, we've talked to Otakaro and the Otakaro staff, and unfortunately it is an issue that is being faced by all councils across the country, whether it's for shovel-ready projects or not.
Does this put our shovel-ready project at risk in terms of receiving the money from the Crown?
No, we've been told it doesn't.
Okay. And obviously been this issue going across the country, are the two relevant ministers aware of the issues that councils are facing with KiwiRail?
I've been advised that they are. That said, I am looking to escalate some information up to Dawn to send on, so that's got to happen over the next wee while.
Okay. I just wondered through you, Chair, if it'd be appropriate for the Mayor to write to the two ministers just to express our ongoing concerns with delays to these projects that regard KiwiRail and the impact on what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly something that's been raised before, and it's an ongoing issue. I mean, it's something that I was aware that the ministers were aware of, but if there's not the progress we're expecting, that could be a good idea.
I'm happy to do that.
Great, thanks.
Great, excellent. So let's do that without the need for.
Andrew, you're muted.
Right, I think that's got me unmuted now. Thank you. Mike, thanks for raising that. So we can, I think we can assume that that's going to happen without the need for a resolution here.
To be honest, it would make it easier for me if it's just simply noted, because then somebody will take responsibility for progressing it, and then you can all get copies of it.
All right, let's do that. So if we can get an amendment then to the resolution that just adds a noting provision.
Thank you.
Reflecting that the Mayor will write to the two ministers. Thank you. Okay, so other people with questions. Sarah.
Thank you. It's another one for Lynette. Listen, I've just been advised this morning that our community board meeting on the 1st of September is cancelled. And our last community board meeting was cancelled as well. It was the first day of lockdown. That first meeting was supposed to have the Cumnor Terrace paper for our shovel-ready Heathcote Expressway project. So that'll be a minimum of a month delay in that recommendation. I'm just wondering if you could look at the potential for maybe just getting some informal feedback from the board and bringing it sooner to the UDT committee or something like that, so that, because I'm concerned about delays on that one. And I know that we have some delays over, when we can build because of, wildlife and those kind of things too.
I can do that.
Yeah, thanks. Andrew, you're muted.
He might be having a couple of issues with his computer.
Why don't you continue, Sam?
Have you got any more, Sarah? Or no? Phil?
Okay, are you there, Lynette?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah. Hey, last time, and I might have missed a little bit. I was a couple of minutes late back. Last time, I know it took a lot of your time and effort because we're under level 4. Contractors were legally allowed to claim for downtime or whatever, and they were all playing the game, which is good. Are we going to run down that same rabbit hole again?
So a lot of what Ruth talked to was the basis of what we're looking at with level with COVID lockdown claims. They will all be worked through. They are all being worked through as they were last time by the engineers reps. They're all assessed as to whether they're valid claims, and they're all assessed under the standard contract that we have and in line with the Construction Contracts Act. And we will pay what is fair and reasonable to pay. They are able, for the claims that they are able to, for the costs that they are able to claim. Last time we had a longer run-in to the lockdown, which meant a lot of sites had temporary done in a traffic management site for months. So it looks like can you guys hear me all right? Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, you were breaking up just a little bit, but you're back now. Sorry,
I've got wobbly internet out here. And I think the kids are online as well, sorry. So last time there was a lot of temporary work done ahead of time so that we weren't living in traffic management sites. This time, not so much. But it'll all be as per the contract and the claim, and our engineers and engineers reps will work through every one of them.
Okay, I thought we were going to somehow modify our contracts a bit last time so we didn't maybe have the exposure that we had previous.
We can't not have the exposure. And I don't think this is a conversation for a meeting. Apologies through the chair. We have to administer our contracts in line with the standard form of contract and the Construction Contracts Act, and that's what we're doing.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So Phil, was there anything else from you then?
No, I'm good. Thanks, buddy.
All right, thank you very much. So I've now got Yanni and then Melanie.
Thank you. John Bridgen was going to be invited to give us an update on the Harry Corey.
Now, Yanni, your sound quality is absolutely awful. I might go to Melanie first and then come back to you. You might want to try dropping your video or otherwise going out and coming back in again. Mel, I'll come to you now. Thank you.
very short and snappy for Lynette as well. It saves me writing an email if I just tell you. Can you send a wee message to our community board about Barrington, Lincoln, Whiteley? I don't know if you've been intending to do that, but it would be just good to get an update to the board as a memo or something like that.
Can do. For the information of the committee, Barrington, Lincoln, Whiteley is being delivered in conjunction with the Lincoln Road PT improvements. So the one project essentially from a contractual point of view.
Thank you very much. Now we're just waiting for Yanni to come back online. Yanni, you're back with us now. So coming to you for your question.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, cool. Parakiori, we were going to have John Bridgman update us at the committee over what was happening there. Have we approached John? I mean, obviously we've gone into lockdown, but I think it would be really good to understand predicted opening date and what the issues are, if there's any issues with it. We just get so little detail on what's actually happening at that place, and I am concerned, given that it's amber.
If you can hear me, and I don't know whether you can.
Yes.
You can hear me, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, you good? Thank you.
Yeah, so we've made it. We'll make an application through the project governance group to get John to attend the next F&P committee to answer those questions, Yanni. So it's in play right now. We're just waiting until we go to the next PGG. That's all.
Could we do it like as a Zoom conference on a Tuesday briefing or something? I mean, rather than, because we were supposed to have it at this meeting. If we wait another month,
yeah, I think to be fair, I mean they will be in lockdown and they will be impacted by the COVID level 4 at the moment. They won't know what the outcome of that is. They were still figuring out the outcome of the last COVID lockdown to date. So there is definitely an impact. There's no doubt. And Mark Noonan, as our project director from our client side team, has been working with them on that, trying to confirm that delay and the impact upon the total delivery. So it's still a work in progress without doubt, but you do need to hear it from, not from us as a team, but you do need to hear it from John Bridgman, and we are making that application. But we can hustle that up if that's what's required. So we'll do that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is just to communicate to the stakeholders and the public about what's going on as well. Just a second question I had was just in regards to Lancaster Park. I mean, pretty disappointing. We got the Closeout Report. There was concerns raised that we were supposed to do this, but we did a fast-track spatial plan to inform the demolition. We're now being told in this report that apparently that some of the stuff we thought was removed as part of the demolition wasn't, and now we've got budget issues and design issues. So I don't know if anyone can kind of speak to that, if we are pursuing any sort of action against the demolition that occurred. I mean, I know we managed the demolition, I think, through VBase. But yeah, I was just quite concerned to read that, given the whole point of doing the fast track spatial plan was to not have that happen.
So the reasons for the current deviations are in the report, but we don't have anyone online at present to answer any specific questions in relation to those exceptions. So we'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, so let's get an answer to Yanni on those outside of the meeting, just given that we don't have the staff here. We knew that that was likely to happen as part of this meeting from time to time. So we'll get some answers to you, Yanni, but offline.
Thank you. And just the one that's already been raised, but it is actually in here, which is the corporate budget. And sorry, I'm just trying to find the page number, but it's around that home equity scheme. I did send an email through this morning, Ruth, with the copy with the attachment. I think it's saying here $2 million. I'm just sort of struggling to understand the issue with, I think it's a $6 million project, and I'm just concerned that we don't have enough visibility of it in terms of our reporting. So I'm just wondering what we might need to do to get greater clarity around that.
I understood that there was going to be a briefing to you about that in September.
Yeah, no, I understand that point, but I guess the point is in terms of ongoing visibility through reporting, we've got a project that seems to have not been implemented and is considerable budget, and we don't have any details on it. So that's 113, where we're told the commentary relies on key initiatives. Corporate investment spend is highly dependent on progress of housing initiative, 3 million, and insurance equity scheme.
I can look into that. I have all of the exceptions in accordance with the criteria in the F&P. So any projects that are going over time or cost and have a forecast greater than $1 million will end up in this report. I can look into that specific project.
I think it would be useful. I just wonder whether the information in that report on page 113 is sufficient from that unit to actually give us an understanding of what's happening.
So that commentary on page 113 is in relation to deliverability of that forecast, not in relation to exceptions on that specific project.
Right.
Yeah.
So could we add that? I mean, I think it's a $6 million budget line. Could we add that to the watch list?
If I could just step in, Councillor, we're getting the report on the 14th. We'll see the way forward after that. And if it needs to be included in the capital projects report from that point on, we'll do it from there, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was very much like a $6 million project that we've had almost zero visibility on since 2018.
Okay, so as Miles has said, this is coming to the briefing on the 14th. There'll be outputs and outcomes from that briefing, one of which could be that we add this the project to the watch list, if that seems to be the appropriate thing to do once we've got the detail that's coming to us on the 14th. Let's wait for that to happen and move on.
I was trying to understand and possibly improve is the reporting against these sorts of projects. I'm just concerned that the lack of detail on something as significant as this. I mean, I think these reports are excellent. To me, that one seems a bit of a gap. So look forward to the briefing, but I was really trying to understand from a process point of view whether we're requiring sufficient information from the units to really understand what's happening with the money.
Understood. I mean, if it's appropriate for this to be added to the watch list, I'll be very happy for that to happen once we've got the information to the briefing on the 14th.
But it'll all be tidied up on the 14th, and if it needs to be added to the watch list, it will be. Yes, we've listened to you.
Thank you.
We've heard you. Thank you.
Okay, Yanni, anything else from you?
No, that's fine. I'm good, thanks.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. Three questions. One is since COVID last year, do we still do contracts the way we used to, or do we now have outs in them so when so if there's another lockdown like now, we don't get stung again?
Just saying if there's anyone from legal or procurement online.
I can probably put something into that, Ruth, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but for those type of questions, that they are commercially sensitive. I wonder whether we should take that offline. Sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that. I mean, if the answer is better given as an offline answer rather than in due to the commercial nature of the question, whether we're better to do that in a different format.
How about I suggest
Sorry, I'd had people in the public ask.
It was actually answered before.
Yeah, Phil asked it exactly the same
back.
question about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't the way I heard it, but that doesn't.
All right. Well, I mean, we can certainly get a written answer outside of this meeting if there's a need for that, and I'm sure that's something that we can deal with.
Okay. So then also, and it's kind of a follow on from one of the first questions was around in level 3. If we go to level 3 like next week, have we made plans that certain work gets brought forward, like when swimming pools or libraries are closed, that work that was scheduled gets brought forward because there's a lot of efficiencies to be had there?
So we're doing planning at the moment in terms of what we can be doing in alert level 3. So I can let Lynette or Helen speak to anything specific in their units.
I mean, I know COVID can be a pain and cost us money, but there's got to be some wins sometimes as well. So someone must be planning where we can save money because stuff's closed, and like Sam raised the point of closed down, so it speeds it up.
And in the last level 3, there were examples of where maintenance work was done at certain libraries and I think swimming pools from memory. There's no reason why, and I assume we would be looking at opportunities to do more of that if indeed we were at level 3 for a length of time that allowed that to happen. Dawn, you might have some comment on this.
Thank you, Chair. To be really clear, we have proven that we have done this work last year. Our teams are already working through what could be done at level 3 on a capital programme perspective, what we can accelerate and what we can't. We will take every single opportunity to claw back time, which we'll have lost in level 4, and to accelerate where we can when we haven't got obstacles like cars, etc., on the road. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Okay, that's fantastic that work's being done, and I wasn't questioning whether we wouldn't do it. It was more a case of just checking it is being done. And then the final one is around shovel-ready projects. Sarah raised one before. Is there some shovel-ready projects that haven't started yet? Because I thought they were all meant to be finished by now. Or is it a new round?
Shovel ready is March 2022.
For completion. So they've got to be 100% completed by then, not started. Is that correct?
So March 2022, I understand, is the water reform funding. So we need to have spent their water reform funding by then, and then Lynette can speak to the shovel-ready transport projects.
The transport projects that we have, which are 2, the major cycleways projects in the coastal pathway, they had to start within 12 months of us signing the agreement. 12 months of us signing that agreement isn't up until October. So they have to start.
Oh, right. Right.
Within 12 months of us signing the shovel-ready funding agreement.
Okay. Right. Wow. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So, Aaron, nothing further from you?
No, it's brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. Any further questions? I'm not seeing anybody else indicating at this time. Nothing. Who have we got? No, that's so we're done with questions. So we've got a recommendation in front of us, which has been, if we can just, yeah, all right. So we've got a recommendation in front of us, which is to receive the information in the report. And then we've got that note that the Mayor will write to the Minister of Finance and Minister of State-Owned Enterprises regarding delays to Kiwi Rail projects. I'm happy to move that set of recommendations. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Who was that, sorry?
Pauline.
Pauline seconds. So moved by me, seconded by Pauline. Is there any debate? I'm not seeing anybody indicating debate. All right, so I'll put the motion.
Sorry, Jimmy.
All right, sorry. Can we come off the split screen back to the full screen again so that I can see everybody? That would be great. So, Jimmy, you'd like to contribute by way of debate. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Because of this item, I think all our councillors probably we all recognize that's very, very crucial item because most of the key project is in this item. And I'm particularly concerned 3 factors. First one is regarding to the cost, particular for the specific budget due to the long-term, those the COVID-19 pandemic big impact. All those the kind of long-awaited the material waiting for the delivery from the overseas. This is a particular concern. Second one I'm concerned is the same delivery time because the from the Kiwi Rail program or from all the kind of the management, the control due to the quite a few the internal external environment has been changed. So I'm very, very concerned. But it's still prefer, and also request the staff, whether it's possible, can feedback to us is more kind of clearly regarding to each the project, each is a key problem bring to the finance and also the performance, the committee or some other committee. We just focus on this key issue. How do we working together resolve this problem? Otherwise, suddenly, further delay, and also the particular situation, community group give us the kind of the disappointment regarding to our progress for fulfill all those the project. This is my particular concern. So cost, the delivery, and also the contact with the Kiwi Rail, or some other contractor. That's most crucial and important. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. So now we'll move to item 15, the Graham Condon R&R Cycle Shutdown Closeout Report. We've got Alistair Pearson to present this one. So, Alistair, any comments or anything you particularly want to draw to our attention from this report? We'll take the report as read, but just any introductory remarks. Thank you.
Thanks for allowing me to do this. The key things first is I just want to acknowledge a couple of members of staff. Matt Cummins, as a senior project manager, was very influential in getting this piece of work done, but also the obvious change request that's occurred during the process as well, which was to take benefit through one of those things that Councillor Keown just mentioned, which is around making a benefit at the time when we were shut down through COVID, that we could do other works and take advantage of that time, and that was done in a very succinct manner. And between Dave Pritchard as the centre operations manager and Matt Cummins, we saw that happen quite quickly. So, and then the other things to mention quickly are I just wanted to cover off I'm working off multiple screens as well as most people in this world that we live in right now. I wanted to cover off the purpose, but you don't probably want to go through that too much, but certainly something around the sustainability would be worth mentioning, and the efficiencies that were added in during the process. And just wanted to talk about the fact that we did enhance all of the LED lighting facilities throughout the area, and we also looked at efficiencies that were offered through the pool plant machinery, the mechanical plant, and the HVAC plant, and the new BMS system that was applied at the same time. So not only did we tidy the place up, which had been deferred for quite a long time due to the earthquakes, that we also added in and took a chance to upgrade all of the equipment, for giving us sort of whole life benefits as we work through the process. So there've been some real advantages to the process we went through. We had a sort of limited budget at start. We took time to reconfigure ourselves as a team and review what we could do in the shutdown, and we applied that period of time, bringing some money forward from the FY21 budget into this project. So we maximised what we could do at the time to ensure that we didn't have a further shutdown long term. So that's the synopsis, really. The last person I do want to make mention of is Amanda Legg. Amanda Legg from our comms team was an exemplar of what we'd expect to see across council, and in the work that she did to communicate to the community, but also to maintain those communications throughout the process, because Graham Condon is an exemplar pool, if you will, of use, and is in high demand at all times. So during that shutdown period, it demanded a higher level of communications to the public in the area, and that was done. And again, we've noted that within the closeout report. So they're probably the key things that I want to talk to, really, without taking too much more of your time.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you for the report. Let's now move to any questions. Are there any questions for Alistair on this closeout report? So Yanni and then Aaron. Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, did the Ministry of Education contribute any money to the maintenance? What's the relationship?
Not that I'm aware of, but I do have Ben Rosker available. He's in the background. There he is. He's online now. Ben, you might be able to answer that.
Yeah, I can. So not in regards to this project. We're currently a subsequent project. We're looking at replacing our heating source. We currently share a wood pellet burner with the Ministry of Education. So in the next financial year, we are looking at moving away from that to a cleaner energy source. So we're in talks with the Ministry of Education at the moment to see if we can have a combined solution. But with the previous project Alistair was talking to, there was no capital involvement from the Ministry of Ed.
And does the school use the gymnasium?
Yes, they do. Yep. So we partially own. They own one of the sports halls. We own the other. So we have a quite interesting relationship with the school. But they definitely use the facilities.
And do they contribute? Do we charge them for using it?
Yes, correct. We charge them at a lower rate, but we charge them for using the facility.
Okay. I just wondered why we wouldn't get money from them to maintain the gymnasium.
Sorry, the works that took place in this upgrade were related to the fitness gym and the pool areas. There was minimal works that took place in the sports hall.
Oh, okay, cool. And then just the other thing I was trying to understand, I guess the whole change request process, why we as elected members don't, it just seems really frustrating that we spend all this time in an LTP discussing a lot less amount than what the change request is. And so, we'll have arguments over, debates over $30,000 or $150,000. But then we get these change requests that can go, in terms of a percentage of the project, are, nearly 100% of the cost. So, we had another one yesterday in the Parks report around the Linwood Village, and we were told it's gone over budget, and therefore we're not proceeding with the options, and we're going to do all these other things instead. But, it just seems to me unclear about why these change requests get approved in this way when we've got other projects that get put on hold because there's not sufficient funding. And as elected members, I just don't quite understand why we don't get more of a discussion.
In this instance, I think it was there's allocated funding anyway for the upgrades, and it was brought forward to maximise the time in contract and the time during the shutdown. Ben can correct me if I'm completely wrong on that, but that was the intention, was to still utilising funds, but rather than having two established shutdowns over multiple years, we decided to do it all in one hit in order to maximise what we could do at the time within the time we were given. So that was the purpose behind it. So it was just best intent at the time, really, which was to maximise what we could do.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that. Yep, thank you.
Right, thank you. Now, Aaron, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had two. Thanks, Alistair. The first one is around the budget variation, because it doubled. With the original budget, how come the original scope was so far off the mark? Was it set a lot earlier than?
The original budget was met. I believe that when we went through the process to what else could we do while we were entering into this phase, because we'd only just gone into contract with Armitage Williams at the time, and we could at that point make a move to change. So our budget covered the work that we were doing, which was the upgrade to the sports area and the pool area. But then we looked at the facilities and the service changes that we could make at the time. So that was why there was two budgets for two different separable portions, if you will, over multiple years. And we've decided that we could maximise everything with one contractor at one time and run that contract simultaneously. So we did.
Okay, that's cool. And then the other question is a follow-on to that. Because you mentioned earlier some sustainability measures and things. Do we have a measure here, and I can't see it, and it might be there, but around what savings we make from that in OPEX?
not in the closeout report, but Ben, you might have some input into that over the future years and how we measure it. I know on other projects we do, you measure BMS over a 12-month annual sort of period so that we can see what the savings are. But the savings are also noted, not savings, but the efficiencies are noted when we go into contract, but also when the piece of kit that we define for the project as well as to what impact that will have over the life of the project. Ben, have you got anything further to add to that?
Not in regards to the project we're talking about, but again, going forward with a replacement of the wood pellet burner, there's definitely savings that we will see, and we're going through that exercise at the moment. A lot of the things that we did in the last year's project were had sustainable initiatives, but we can't really see the benefits for that. So that could be using the rubber flooring in the gym, which is made from recycled tyres, low flow shower heads, so we can look at a water reduction, but it's quite hard to get those readings. But there are things outside of electricity and savings, but just by purchasing goods that have either been produced in a sustainable manner is one way we look at it as well.
Yeah, because it'd be good going forward to have tools that not just your department, but all departments can use, that when we say sustainability, and if there's a cost savings, it's easier to make decisions when we say, yep, we're going to do this, this, and this, and these are the ongoing savings. And that way it can help with decision making, I think.
Thank you. Pauline.
Yeah, thanks. I did have my hand up before, but I'd pushed the wrong hand. It was the waving hand instead of the hand up.
I noticed you were clapping rather than hand up, and at one point you were both. But
could you hear the sound of that one hand clapping? I'm just wondering. Hey, thank you, Alistair, also for calling out the staff when they do a really good job. I think it's really important that staff who are named and recognised. So thank you for that. My question is around the Graham Condon pool opened in 2012, so only 9 years later we're upgrading the showers and the change rooms and the flooring and that sort of thing. And I appreciate the fact that you've taken the opportunity to get in there and do some improvements. But can you tell me what's the expected life of this upgrade?
Great question. I'd have to go away. I'd have to go away and see what we established through the procurement process as to what our expectations were written in the plan. I could talk to the fact that I think that the Graham Condon pool in particular is heavily endorsed by the public, and it's probably harder worn than most. But Ben, you might have something you could add. It's a shame we haven't got Dave here, but
yeah, I can speak to that briefly. So every year we're looking at a refresh. So this piece of work was quite a major piece of work, and again that was due to the earthquakes and the network being reduced. We could only close it when we did, but every 3 years we'll have an operational shutdown. So for example, we're planning a up to 2 week closure of Taira QE2 in the upcoming cycle. That's only 3 years old, but we're trying to keep on top of the maintenance within these facilities. And then every 6 to 9 years we look at a major refurbishment. So this one that we've done at Graham Condon should be refreshed every 3 years, and then a major refresh every 9.
Well, it sounds almost like an LTP, doesn't it? So they're pretty expensive units to run, and not just in operational, but in the capital as well, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Yanni, you've got something further?
Thank you. I was just trying to align with the program, the CPMS sheet on Graham Condon, which had 630,000 in the year 21-22. So it's got a different project ID, but obviously that was because it was the R&R rather than the R&R cycle shutdown. Is that correct? So I just want to be clear that both of these budgets were tagged for Graham Condon, and we've obviously got an amended LTP that's created cost savings. I just can't align the budget and the CPMS sheet.
Yeah, I'll try and answer that. I think maybe what you're looking at, so this funding for the project would have been in FY20. So the money for FY21 122 may be aligned to the boiler replacement that we're looking at potentially. That's my thoughts.
So have we still got another 630,000 we're going to spend on this poll?
On the boiler upgrades at this stage, we've allocated 600 plus to replace the wood pellet burner with a more efficient energy source. So yeah, there is still budget for that.
Is that? Oh, okay. Did we consider doing that at the same time, or?
We've been looking at this for quite a few years. We're working with the Ministry of Education. The current wood pellet burner has still got a lifespan until 2027. But the last 2 years we've been working with the Ministry of Education. They've got a master plan for the redevelopments of their facilities. So they're replacing 2 full blocks of their school. So we were trying to time it with them, but there'll be minimal impact to the facility when we change heating sources. We can literally flick the switch overnight, so there'll be no impact. So we don't require a shutdown for that.
Except it's costing us another 630,000 5-6 years ahead of when we'd need to spend the money.
If we decide to do it this calendar year, which we are looking at, but the savings and the payback from that, we're looking at operational savings of just at a rough glance at the moment, about $80,000 per year.
Right. And again, we're going to get the ministry to pay for any of this?
Yes, if we have a combined solution, we will definitely be getting contribution from them. At this stage, we're still working out whether we can do a combined solution.
Okay, I'm just mindful of what happened at QE2. So I guess at a governance level, if there's anything we can do to support the joint up approach. Thank you for clarifying that. I think the CPMS sheet isn't really clear that it's for the boiler. So I don't know whether that's something we can pick up. But thanks for the closeout report and the work that you've done. Cheers.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else indicating questions at this time. Are there any further questions? All right, so we've got a recommendation in front of us, which is to simply receive the information in the report, which I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Was that Aaron?
Yes.
Yep, great. So moved by me, seconded by Aaron. Is there any debate on this? All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. So there are a number of items on this agenda which are just reports for information, which are to be deferred until, or to be deferred to a future meeting, which I would hope would be the next meeting, on the assumption that we're able to have the next meeting face to face. So the reports which are to be deferred are item 11, item 13, item 14, and item 16. Those are all just reports for information. So that then means that we have completed the public section of the agenda. So that now leads us to item 17, which is the resolution to exclude the public, which I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder for that resolution?
Happy to
Jimmy Chen will second. All those in favour say aye. Against? Any abstentions? That's carried. So we'll just wait for confirmation that we have stopped the live stream and we're actually in public exclusion.